is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the altar again, and this time we are here with Sully and Sandy of the almighty Grove Street. It is great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yep, it is so awesome to have you guys here. I got to tell you, the path to the righteousness is absolutely awesome. Path to Righteousness, my review of it is it really has everything we love about old school thrash, from the Slayers to the Anthraxes to the new school thrashes with bands like Power Trip. I really think it's just an absolute smorgasbord of groove. For people who haven't heard this full album yet, though, do you feel that the first singles that we heard so far, Lessons of the Past, and the title track, The Path to Righteousness, is a good representation of this whole album in a way, or is that just one little taste of what's to come?
I'd say that's a little taste. We're actually dropping another single very soon, and for me, that next single is like the kind of rounds up the album in like one package. It's got like groove, it's got the thrash bits. It hits hard at the end. Like, yeah, wait for that one. That one's fucking. That's personally my favorite song on the record as well. But I feel like, yeah, the ones that are out now definitely showcase a lot of what's to come on the album as well.
Mm-hmm. Was there sort of like a preconceived vision of what the Path to Righteousness was supposed to sound like in a way, or was this like a very improvisational and sort of like experimental process?
I think in terms of the musicality of it, it was very much like, we all got together. We were like, right, this is what we want to sound like. Obviously, we didn't want to stray too far from what we'd done before as a band, but we also wanted to, bring in something new, bring in, a more exciting direction for us. In terms of like the lyrics and sort of topics and stuff like that, that was almost done along the way, and it was we got probably halfway through writing the record, and at that point it was like, oh, okay, that's what like the parallels for these songs are lyrically. We never really like had a plan at the start to kind of have like an overruling topic that all the songs had to relate to. It's very much like, okay, we found the parallel now we'll try and craft the rest of the songs to kind of match that as well. And so we were winging it basically, mate.
Well, you led me perfectly into the next question, mentioning the lyrics. And for you, was there like at all a sort of concept behind the Path to Righteousness in a way? Was this sort of like a historical reference in a way, or like the Path to Righteousness, is that maybe something more rooted and personal?
Sorry, you go, son.
Yeah, go on. I mean, what is it like? There's a lot of issues within the songs and stuff like that. I think that's touched upon, like more personal issues and like within your environment and stuff around you. So I think it presses a lot onto a lot of different sort of areas within stuff. Go on, Sand, you explain as well, man. You do well.
Yeah, I mean, the actual like Path to Righteousness to me is almost like representing almost like the pursuit of happiness, like the journey through life to get to where you want to be. And there's songs like the songs on the record, each kind of represents something that's either in the way of your journey or stuff that's thrown at you on that journey, it's basically just stuff that we were experiencing at the time in our lives.
Well, I got many different like vibes and sort of like emotions behind it. Like when you open up with Regressing Forward, which I thought was a perfect like opening title track in a way. But then like when you end with Cycle of Grief and have that sort of essence of grief demonstrated on here. But with tracks like Shift or Ulterior Motives, it seems like that there was a lot of different emotions felt throughout this album. Is it fair to assume that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially myself when I'm helping do the writing of the lyrics, I definitely take a lot of like inspiration from how I'm feeling, and that's where I sort of draw influence from a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. But do you feel like maybe the lyrical ideas could also help dictate like the direction of the music itself?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I mean, in terms of how we kind of write, we usually do the music first, But say if there is like a really prevalent line, we'll kind of recraft some of the musicality of it to back up, what's happening lyrically.
And as for you, Sully, like the way that it's supposed to sort of like resonate with you in a way, or is it supposed to hit you in a specific manner in order for you to sort of execute it live as well?
I mean, you always got to try and put a lot, like, for me, there's a lot of emotion involved in playing live anyway. You've got to show, you've got to give everything you've got in it. And I think with these songs, yeah, there's a lot of emotion in it that I try to put forward and show within that, because, like, there is tough, everyone goes through tough times. And the good thing about playing in a hardcore band and stuff like that is that you have a show and you play it live and you can get it out of you. And I think that's what I want to do with these songs, is just like have that feeling within you of like what the song's about, and bring it out and show it off to everyone and be like, this is it, this is letting your anger out, this is letting like those hard times out and just being happy with it.
Well, having the sort of like thrashy elements, but also with the hardcore roots behind it, I've kind of wanted to. I love having this discussion. Is there really much of a difference between metal and hardcore in a way? Because I see elements of both in Grove Street, but like I never understood like if both are very aggressive and in your face forms of music, like how one could appreciate one but not the other.
There's a really good mix within it. Like, you have some bands that are more hardcore and lean more to the punk side, and you have more bands that lean to the metal side. I mean, without like say like Cro-Mags, you wouldn't have really have got that metallic side to hardcore start coming through. And so it mixes really, really well. Thrash mixes in really well with it. Like, you even get bands nowadays that mix in death metal with it.
Yeah, which is
Like,
totally cool.
yeah, which is really cool. Like, so it's really cool to see a lot of mixes of different stuff with hardcore, making it more metal, making it a bit more death metal, making it a bit more punky.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I feel like hardcore is as much of an adjective as it is a noun in a way. Like when I have yet to see Grove Street live, and I hope that that does change soon, and that you guys can make it to the U.S. But like your shows look like they are absolutely wild, and you go all into it. Like I've seen pictures of Instagram where you guys are just up in the air, going all out insane. Like it seems like hardcore is as much of a stage presence or a personality or just an overall presentation as much as it is as a musical style as well.
yeah, I'd say so. I'd agree with that. Like, it's kind of hard to explain it a bit, but it's just like, it's just something you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's more the community aspect of it as well. It's like, I don't imagine, with a lot of like like metal shows and stuff like that, I don't see it being the general crowd as community based as like the hardcore crowd, if that makes sense. Maybe that's a bit of an assumption on my part, but I think within hardcore, people go for the community, not just the music. People go to those shows to be a part of that. Whereas I think a lot of, especially like the bigger, wider metal scenes, you don't seem to get that community vibe too much.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that. As somebody from New York, which is the hardcore capital of the world, you do notice a difference. Like, and I don't say this like it's a bad thing or as a criticism by any stretch of the means, but like you'll go to like a metal show, you'll see some people there, but like they'll go to a metal show, enjoy the band that they want to see. They'll go see Metallica, they'll go see Slayer, and then they'll just go home and see you at the next show. Hardcore people, they go to the hardcore shows, they hang out with like the hardcore scene, they go to every sort of like event, whether it's like a presentation or some sort of convention or whatever. Like you'll always see a hardcore kid at every hardcore related thing.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think, like I was saying, I think that just goes to show a lot of people are in it for the community aspect, not just the music. People will go to shows even if it's bands that they've never heard of or bands that they might not like. They go to be a part of that.
Yeah. When it comes to the craziness of your shows, though, do you almost have to practice crowd interaction or stage presence as much as you have to practice the music itself?
Yeah, I mean, well, we've been doing this band now for like 10 years, and we've all grown within that. Like, our first show, it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't like how it is now with us. We were a bit more rigid. We didn't know exactly what we were doing. Even though we'd played in bands before, it was a new sort of thing. So over the years, like, we've developed our stage presence and how we like to be able to say, like, Sandy's got some really like good stage moves that he does, like some kicks, some jumps and stuff. And he's just like perfected them over the years. Like, I've seen him all throughout, like, do these kung fu kicks that like sick. And then one of them he did in like a show he played recently. There's some picture and it looks like his foot is over his head.
Call me Jackie Chan, bro.
Yeah. Mate, you deserve
Mate,
that.
it stretches, man. That's all that is. Now, I feel like in terms of crowd reaction, that's something that we still kind of we're still building that, and a lot of that depends on which crowds we're playing to. I feel like more used to addressing hardcore crowds and stuff like that now, but in terms of like the last couple of months, we've been touring with bands that are outside of the hardcore world, in like the broader mainstream of like alternative bands. We went out with Cancer Bats recently, and it was like a whole different crowd, and it was like talking to very different people than what we're used to. But I think that was more in terms of the fact that they were like totally new to us, or we were totally new to them as well. So it's something that we're always trying to evolve, and yeah, just growing in confidence with, really.
Going back to what you said too about the community aspect of hardcore, though, because is that when it comes to the songwriting aspect, is it better when you're all writing when you're in the company of each other, or isolation being such a great fuel for creativity, you all find it maybe easier to come up with your own individual parts when you're more alone in isolation and there's really nothing in between you and your instrument or your pen or whatever?
It's really weird, man. I feel like I can come up with better riffs and I can actually put the time into them when I'm on my own, but the songs come together better as a whole when we're all jamming together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, you never get the full sense of the song until you're all playing that song from start to finish together in the same room, right?
Yeah, that's it. I feel like you can just bounce ideas off of each other a lot easier as well. Like, we're in a pandemic. It was fucking hard, man. I was writing sort of full songs just on my own, demoing them out on my sort of setup, and then how we could kind of work it was we'd take them into a practice room and then pull them apart because we couldn't really get together. And by the time we got into the practice room, it's probably like nine or 12 months after I'd written them anyway. So that initial excitement about that idea was gone, So I feel like that plays a big part in it. Is the what's the word? The like initial kind of energy that you get from like a new idea. You get that stoke on, and you're like, yeah, fucking sick, let's go. Whereas if it kind of dies down after a while, it's a little bit harder to get back into. I think that kind of played a big role in the writing process, or big hindering role, to be fair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you work on a song for like a long period of time too, I imagine it's sort of like makes it a little bit more difficult to maintain that initial spark of the idea, right?
Yeah, definitely.
When it comes to writing together though, because when people tell me, oh, we all mutually came together and it was all a collective process, I don't really believe it. If you're in a band with 4 to 5 people with all your different experiences, there's going to be some disagreements or different ideas. But do you think that all of you being in your own worlds actually helps maybe enhance the song in a way, or the writing process?
Yeah, I think especially once we've got that like initial demo down, or maybe like the initial one after jamming it out. So let's call it like the second draft of it. Going back on our own for like, I don't know, say like a week to 2 weeks to actually properly let the track sit with you, That definitely helps, you know, rather than kind of all being just in the space together and potentially not wanting to say, "Oh, look, lads, I don't like it," so you don't hurt anyone's feelings or anything like that. You know, that has a bit of a play in it. You know.
Of course it does. And I have a few more questions for you guys. One of them is going back to the live show. Is there at all a similar energy that you channel into playing live as you do when you are songwriting? Is there anything like, in a way, because this sort of brain picky thing is you're taking songs that we hear on the album and you're just replicating them in a live setting. So is there anything really creative about the live show in a way?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. To be fair, it is a good question.
Yeah.
I feel like when to flip it around a little bit on its head, I feel like when we're writing the songs, we do have the live show in mind. You know, we're a lot because we're a hardcore band. You know, we like that energy of you know seeing people moshing or seeing people going wild, just enjoying themselves. You know, it's very weird to us to be playing to a static crowd. So we're always keeping that in mind when we're writing new parts. It's like, would I move to this? Would this make me want to stage dive? Would I, you know, want to go wild to this sort of part? And if not, then a lot of the time we'll write something different. You know, I'm not saying that every part is moshy, but where it needs to be, we do kind of bear that in mind. So yeah, I think as well we're trying to bring sort of new elements into the live show as well. Like we recently got like a drum sample pad to be able to play the samples off the album and stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of like doing anything just off the cuff live, like it's not really something that we've sort of dabbled in, to be honest with you.
Never say never.
Never say that.
Hey, you might have sown the seed then, mate.
Yeah, hell yeah. And the final question I wanted to talk about is the sort of like UK hardcore scene to begin with, because I've talked about it extensively. And before we started rolling, I don't know if you were on the Zoom call yet, slowly, but like
Yeah.
I was saying that metalcore has been the UK's greatest export, because with Massachusetts and Australia also being the metalcore capitals in a way, I know that either South Africa or India or the Bahamas are going to be the next big metalcore capitals one day. But I was just wondering how the sort of scene has been with the Harm's Way, or not Harm's Way, I'm sorry, with the Employed to Serves and the Venom Prisons and so many other great bands that come out of the UK, if maybe there has been a sort of scene that you're all maybe associated with.
Venom Prison for sure. Like they came from the hardcore scene originally. Like their first show was a hardcore show that was in Wales, and so like it's sick to see that they like opened themselves up and went massive into the world. Same with Employed to Serve, come from the same sort of scene like around. So it's really like good to see bands like that break that sort of ceiling and get out into the wide world. Yeah, but they've come from the scene. It's it, and there's a lot of other bands, especially in the UK, that like deserve way more than they getting right now, because the UK is putting out some really good stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, with Loathe, Static Dress, you know, and just so many, the Bury Tomorrow having their own thing, Architects having their own thing, it just seems like that there's always been a great scene for aggressive music in general, but also like with the aggressive hardcore sound that you guys have. I mean, I think you guys are probably one of the heaviest bands I've heard from the UK.
Thank you. We'll take that for sure.
Yeah, and
But yeah, like
oh,
especially with like Static Dress as well, man. Like I'm stoked to see where those guys are going. Like, you know, opening for like Bring Me. Like Ollie from them came from a hardcore scene that's just like taking pictures and like pulled together this band, and is like now achieving what he's doing, and he's still like turns up to shows and stuff. Like I've got a lot of respect for him on that part. So yeah.
Yeah, you can never take somebody out of the hardcore scene because you can never take the hardcore scene out of them.
Exactly. He's a hardcore kid through and through.
Yep. And as for you guys as well. So before we go, I want to thank you both so much for your time today, for such an awesome chat, and most of all, thank you for just a phenomenal album. Just The Path to Righteousness. It's coming out very soon. Is there just anything else with Grove Street you would all like to promote in terms of upcoming shows? What else we could be expecting? Please tell me there is a U.S. tour somewhere in the future.
Oh, I hope so, man. I've never been, so yeah, let's hope to that. But yeah, we got another single dropping next week, depending on when this is coming out, of course.
Yep.
Keep an eye out for that. But yeah, keep an eye out for the record release, September 29th on UNFD.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. Everybody, we are here with Grove Street. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having us, man.